There is a dangerous group of white men posted up in Washington, D.C., who are playing revisionist history in real time. And so the good Lord has told me to continue to pop my Black history shit. His words, not mine. And so in today's Mystery of Black History, we highlight Stokely Carmichael. The 1960s is arguably the most pivotal decade for Black America. With the transition from the mainstream conservative civil rights movement into a more radical militant Black power movement, few icons have made more impact in each social circle than Stokely Carmichael. In Peniel Joseph's 2014 book, Stokely, A Life, Joseph ties in the fabric of Stokely's life and how his story serves as a major symbol of the Black American freedom struggles during the 60s. Born in Port of Spain, Trinidad, June 29, 1941, Stokely grew up with a relatively privileged childhood shielded from the harsh living conditions faced by most Trinidadian families. By 1952, after the death of his grandmother, Stokely and the family would immigrate to New York. The Carmichaels moved to Bronx, and as the book states, Stokely's arrival in New York City began the process of becoming African American. The Bronx introduced Carmichael to Black Americans' cultural rhythms and idioms. A brilliant student, Stokely attended the Bronx High School of Science, attending political science study and think sessions involved in youth marches and rallies. It was clear at a young age that activism was his calling. He constantly read the newspaper and was inspired heavily by activist Bayard Rustin. Harlem would also have its effects on Stokely, as he would spend much of his teenage years attending and listening to the street preachers throughout the neighborhoods. Stokely was the same age as Emmett Till when he was murdered, and there was moments like this that would only elevate his activism. In 1960, Stokely enrolls in Howard University, a full-time student, a full-time community activist, and organizer. It was during these times when Stokely's political ideology broadened and deepened. His views were more of an assertive, aggressive application of nonviolence. From participating in the Freedom Rides to spending his summers in Mississippi registering people to vote, Stokely was wherever the action was. Affiliations with groups like the Nonviolent Action Group, or NAG, and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, Stokely pushed efforts with Black exclusive groups and interracial groups. This diversity made him a promising up-and-comer and intriguing organizer. In 1961, Stokely would spend his 20th birthday in a Mississippi jail cell. One of the remaining Freedom Riders still locked up, he knew that this would ultimately be his future as he would go on to be arrested over 30 times within the next 5 years. Stokely had a profound love for the downtrodden and disenfranchised people in Mississippi. His time there would be the beginning of his rise to national civil rights recognition. The Mississippi Freedom Summer, the murders of the young activists Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, and the contention with the DNC, Stokely was becoming more radical and agitated. By the mid-1960s, Stokely moved to Lowndes County, Alabama, continuing in his efforts of organizing and activism with SNCC. At this point, he's worked with and marched with Dr. King at Selma, and he would use much of King's tactics in Lowndes County and also use the symbol of a Black Panther to identify the Lowndes County Freedom Organization for future political purposes. This symbolism would travel all the way to Oakland, California, and in 1966, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense would form. Also in 1966, while marching in the streets of Mississippi, Stokely would give a speech and popularize the phrase Black Power. He was speaking to Black people's need for self-pride and economic independence. Mainstream media would vilify the term, and many Black leaders, specifically from the Civil Rights Guard, would condemn it. However, the term would usher in the Black Power movement for the remainder of the 60s, and Stokely would use his influence in SNCC to promote Black Power philosophy. In addition, the Vietnam War was at its peak, and Stokely was one of the first activists to speak out against it. Holding America's feet to the fire, both domestically and internationally, made Stokely a star and a target. He called out America's role in global imperialism and began to advocate for economic justice for Black people. In 1968, Stokely leaves SNCC and shortly after becomes the honorary prime minister of the Black Panther Party. And though the Panthers were only 2 years into a 16-year run, their union with Stokely would be brief and relatively underwhelming. At this time, Stokely's sights were set internationally, with Africa and Pan-Africanism centering the forefront of his politics. He continued to call out America on global stages and in places like London and Cuba. And in 1969, he would move to Guinea, changing his name to Kwame Ture in honor of Guinean President Ahmad Ture and exiled Ghanaian President Kwame Nkrumah. He would continue advocating for Pan-Africanism until his death in 1998, leaving a legacy filled with grassroots stories and frontline work. Stokely, A Life. Peniel Joseph's in-depth look at one of the movement's most layered icons. Like if you enjoyed this segment, share if it could benefit others, subscribe for more book-related content. Till then, stay in the book or stay out the way.